Good afternoon. Boy, is there a lot to cover today. It took me a lot more time to research because I wanted to make sure I had everything that was going on on Twitter and just in the world right now when it comes to Canada US relations. So, I'm going to share my thoughts too. So I'm going to share what I'm seeing and what my thoughts are. And I'm going to invite you guys to share yours as well to see exactly what do you think is happening? What do you think is going on? Do you think Trump is trolling? Do you think he's being serious? There's been some insinuations of a few things, but I haven't quite put my finger on what exactly he's doing. I have some ideas, but anyways, I'm gonna first start with sharing this video. So this was done yesterday. I didn't share it in yesterday's show because I didn't have it then. I think it was posted while I was filming, so I didn't get to share it then. But I'm gonna show you guys. So Brian Lilly is the one who posted, like there's so many people who've posted it, but Brian Lilly is one of them. And he says
Well, we
we
need
have to
Greenland for
assume that he's not
national
joking and
security
not
purposes. I've been
just
told that
trolling
for
Trudeau anymore. So I'll play the video. I'm just getting it ready on the other screen here. Here. There you go. I'll play it and you guys can listen to it at the same time as me and kind of get your perspective on what he means and what he says. And then I'll share my thoughts. And then I'll share like what Trudeau's response to it, what Pierre Poilievre's response to it is, and a few other Canadians who've kind of weighed in, and Americans who've weighed in on it.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking
It's not
about it for
very
a long
loud,
time.
is it?
You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world.
Oh, this is the wrong video.
You don't even need binoculars. You look outside.
Okay, this is sorry. Okay, I'm gonna switch it because this is the wrong video. I thought it was the same, but I've got the wrong. Here, give me a second. I thought you guys could see it. You didn't even get to see it because I didn't switch the screen. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I hope the sound problem is fixed. Here. I've got two videos of Trump being interviewed then, but this is the right one here. Here you go. Play.
Mr. President, if we were to work under the assumption that you're serious about making Canada 51st state of the United States, the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstance will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't care.
You had suggested.
Listen, I don't care what he says.
But Sir Lopez, you're considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line and you take a look at what that looks like. And it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it.
I had seen a longer one where he kept talking, but this video is shorter. I'm just going to see quickly if I can. I should have played it before, but I thought, okay, this is the full blown one, but I had listened to one before. Trump. Here. Whoops. I'm going to see if I can find it. If somebody has the longer version of it, because I want to hear the whole thing. Okay, this one's 4 minutes long. Okay, let's open this one because I want to get the full. Here. The joys of being alive. Sometimes I have to look things up. Wow.
Making Canada
While we're
50%.
live. Okay, so I'm going to skip it a little bit because there's the question here. Because the other one was, what, 50 seconds? Okay, here you go.
Great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We're spending hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need the cars. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need their lumber. We have to unrestrict them because stupid people put, restrictions on, but I can do that with an executive order. We don't need anything they have. We don't need their dairy products. We have more than they have. We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? And I said that to, as I called him, Governor Trudeau. I said, listen, what would happen if we didn't subsidize you, if we didn't, because we give them a lot of money. We help them. As an example, we're buying icebreakers, and Canada wants to join us in the buying of icebreakers. I said, we don't really want to have a partner in the buying of icebreakers. We don't need a partner. But
Gives the U.S. the right to lay claim to us.
no right. Nope, no right. Here's what we have. We have a right not to help them with their financial difficulties because we owe $36 trillion too. We're going to start knocking it out pretty fast, but we're going to be able to do it because of energy and other things. But no right. No right. But why are we supporting a country 200 billion plus a year? Our military is at their disposal. All of these other things, they should be a state. That's why I told Trudeau when he came down, I said, what would happen if we didn't do it? He said Canada would dissolve. Canada wouldn't be able to function if we didn't take their 20% of our car market. They send us hundreds of thousands of cars. They make a lot of money with that. They send us a lot of other things that we don't need. We don't need their cars, and we don't need the other products. We don't need their milk. We got a lot of milk. We got a lot of everything, and we don't need any of it. So I said to him, well, why are we doing it? He said, I don't really know. He was unable to answer the question, but I can answer it. We're doing it because of habit, and we're doing it because we like our neighbors, and we've been good neighbors, but we can't do it forever, and it's a tremendous amount of money. And why should we have a $200 billion deficit and add on to that many, many other things that we give them in terms of subsidy? And I said, that's okay to have if you're a state. But if you're another country, we don't want to have it. We're not going to have it with European Union either. European Union, we have a trade deficit of $350 billion. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm product. They don't take anything. And so we're not going to have it with them either.
That was from Alex Jones. Either way, it's he shared that video. Interesting. So he's saying it about Europe too. Europe, obviously, they have a trade deficit that's even greater. But someone posted how much oil Trump or the US gets from Canada, and I think it was something as high as 67%. I don't have the post and the graph up, but it was really high, and they're like, well, you're not going to get our oil anymore then if if they do this. But the thing is, Trump wouldn't, or America wouldn't need our oil if oil wasn't stifled in America. The reason we're buying so much from Canada, whether it's at a discounted rate or not, the reason we're buying so much is because the Biden administration has stifled oil production in the US. Trump is planning on opening all of that up. Now, the question we have to ask ourselves, Trump makes a really good point. If Trump is America first, which he is, we should expect that as Canada. So we need to come to the table and explain what it is exactly that we have to offer to combat. I don't honestly think he's going to take over Canada, that we're going to be the 51st state. I don't think it's realistic. And I don't think he's going to do a war on Canada. If he was to do that, the entire world would go against America. The entire world would side with Canada. Can he do economic harm to Canada? Yeah, huge economic harm. And when I see this play out, whether it's on Twitter or in the news, I see this as just even more of a reason why we need a strong leader in Canada. He knows he can walk all over Trudeau because he can. So, and Trudeau's response was so weak, so weak. I'll share it here. I'll share Trudeau's response, but I'll share Elon Musk's comment on it too here. So Trudeau says there isn't a snowball chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. Workers and communities in both our countries benefit from being each other's biggest trading and security partner. This is all he said. And Elon says, girl, you're not the governor of Canada anymore. So does it matter what you say? Anyways, I laugh because Elon is like the king of trolling, and he's trolling Justin Trudeau. That was such a weak response from Justin Trudeau. One that I liked a lot better was Pierre Poilievre's response here. Is it here? No, right there. Canada will never be the 51st state, period. We are a great and independent country, which we technically aren't. We're part of the monarchy. So, but anyways, we are a great and independent country. We are the best friend to the US. We spend billions of dollars and hundreds of lives helping Americans retaliate against Al Qaeda 9/11 attacks. We supply the US with billions of dollars of high quality and totally reliable energy well below market price. We buy hundreds of billions of dollars of American goods. Our weak and pathetic NDP Liberal government has failed to make these obvious points. I will fight for Canada. When I am Prime Minister, we will rebuild our military and take back control of the border to secure both Canada and the US. We will take back control of our Arctic to keep Russia and China out. We will axe taxes, slash red tape, and rapidly greenlight massive resource project to bring home paychecks and production to our country. In other words, we will put Canada first. I think this is a way better response. I don't know if this response was before, so that would have been yesterday at 3 p.m. And from the first post that I saw of the video, it was like around 1. So whenever I was filming. So this post must have been done after the fact. But there was a few other comments that I wanted to share. So Ben Shapiro, sorry, I have something in my eye. I'm wearing glasses today. My contacts are bothering me so much. So yeah, we will call off the planned invasion if you are elected PM. We will make no such guarantee if Fidel Castro's son remains the prime minister. So this is Ben Shapiro, who's like a really big conservative commentator in the US. So he's basically saying, okay, Pierre, if you get elected, we won't invade you. We will make no such guarantee if Fidel Castro's son remains the prime minister. I thought this was funny. There's a few other like conservative commentators that said a few things, Matt Walsh being one of them. I wasn't too impressed with Matt Walsh's comment. It was almost like saying like, I hate authoritarian governments and authoritarian ways of running government. So the way Matt Walsh said it basically is like, we're taking you over whether you like it or not. And I don't think that would work. To be honest, if it even was to become like a force, like physical force or violence, I don't think the American people would go for it. Like it's not like Canada is attacking them or a threat to them. It's not like Canada has that much resources that they would benefit to the point where they'd be willing to risk lives and do a war for it. I don't think it's going to happen that way. But anyways, it just makes it sound like maybe we shouldn't have done such a a big amount of gun ban in Canada. Oh, we've become such a weak country. And I say that honestly. We have economically in so many ways. We don't have an army. We have one, but very minuscule. We've just depended on America to defend us. And that was what one of the next comment, I think it's Anthony, says. Canada has been a vassal state for America for a long time. Now we're shocked when they treat us like one. When you surrender the responsibility of your own national defense to another country, you end up where we are today. It's time to invest in our military. And I fully agree with what Anthony has to say here. If you don't follow Anthony, I highly recommend you do. He does a lot of political commentating and stuff, and he's very brilliant. Anyways, he was gone from Twitter for a little bit, but he came back when Trudeau announced his resignation. So it's interesting to see. What are your thoughts? Like, what do you think Trump is doing? Do you think he's just, I feel like what he's doing is just creating more and more pressure for a changing government in Canada. And Trudeau and the Liberal government's failure to protect Canada's interests is creating more and more people to want to vote Conservatives to push back on Donald Trump. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen, but because of this massive threat that's coming, now Trudeau has prorogued government until March 24th, and which means the tariffs are coming. The 25% tariffs are coming January 20th. So it's going to destroy Canada's economic, what's the word I'm looking for? Economy. It's going to destroy Canada's economy. But right now they're prorogued. They're on hold. They're not even meeting. They're not even doing anything about it. Actually, Justin Trudeau, I think it's today, it's either today or tomorrow, is heading to DC for former President Carter's funeral. So will he be talking to Trump there? I don't know. But I kind of don't want him to talk to Trump, because I feel like every time he opens his mouth when it comes to this stuff, it does more harm than good. I would rather have like a strong leader do that job, not Trudeau, especially hearing of the things, like how the conversation went. Actually, I'm going to find that and play it for you guys, just to highlight the, and I shared this video when I was in Phoenix, Arizona. I actually watched this live, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to share this with Canadians. And so I like left the speech just to do a quick record and post it. And then eventually a lot of other people kind of caught on to it and then shared it as well. But I'm just scrolling down here to find it. It was December 20th, was it? Here. I did post a lot that day. There was so much going on. I got to meet so many people. Here. This is how the meetings go between Trump and Trudeau.
Not going to do.
How weak of a leader, of a prime minister he is.
Them. But the tariffs are really designed not because tariffs are like fun and games. Tariffs are designed for President Trump as leverage. There is no one in the history of American politics who has used leverage better than President Trump. Right? He uses tariffs as a way of threatening countries to do what he wants. So I'll give you a story. I won't give you the source on the story because I don't want to betray confidence, but it's a great story, so I'm going to tell it anyway. Okay, so this is a story I'd never heard anywhere before. Here's the story. President Trump's meeting with Justin Trudeau, who may or may not be Fidel Castro's son. In any case. By the way, he's totally Fidel Castro's son. Anyway, he's meeting with Justin Trudeau, apparently, during the first administration. And he is asking for a bunch of things, right, for Canada to do. And Trudeau doesn't want to give all of them. So Trump says to his people, bring Justin here, bring Justin to me. So apparently they sit across from one another. And Trudeau is talking with the president, and President Trump says, Justin, I want you to tell me, if there were one thing I could do tomorrow to completely wreck the Canadian economy, what would it be? And Trudeau goes, well, I mean, Mr. President, there are a lot of things. You're a very powerful country, but if you tariffed our cars, it would be really, really bad. And Trump goes, Justin, I want to teach you a lesson. The first thing not to do in a negotiation is answer the question, if you could do one thing to destroy me, what would it be? So, of course, President Trump continues, I don't care about Canada. I only care about America. So I'm going to tariff all your cars unless you give me what you want. He got what he wanted. Okay, that's how I think President Trump thinks about tariffs.
How weak is that? It's I find it really interesting. And then that's not even what happened with the meeting that they had at Mar-a-Lago either. That meeting was even just as much disastrous. But this was before that. This was the first tariff negotiation back in 2016. So what does this mean? Well, as Canadians, we need to have a leader that's going to be pushing forward and selling Canadian interests, as in basically the strength that we have and why the US does benefit from Canada. I mean, at the same time, you can say, oh, we're not benefiting from you. We could do everything ourselves. He's saying that, but then in the exact same breath, he's like, well, you should become the state because you have so much to offer us. You should become a state. The two are kind of counterproductive. I'll see what some of the comments are saying. So someone says Canada is stupid not to join them. Here. Trudeau always has to have a bird chirping in his ear. If he doesn't, he has no intelligence. Canada's the largest water ownership, which is true. We do have a lot of fresh water. Just checking to see here. Trudeau's actually used the words intend to resign if someone can be found who can properly step in. So what you're saying, he's not going to resign? I don't know. I can't see that happening. I wish he would have resigned right away and they would have found a replacement in the meantime to take over until they have a leader. Basically, I wish he would have been booted out, to be honest, but we have a lot to do to undo the Trudeau woke damage. Yeah, it's true. And like the thing is, right now we're super weak because of the damage Trudeau has done to Canada. Like the whole reason we're sending all our oil to the US at a discount is because we're not even providing oil to the rest of Canada. Like we should have pipelines that go to Quebec and New Brunswick, but no, Quebec and New Brunswick has a refinery that could process all of the oil. However, they're getting their oil from the Middle East. They're getting it shipped to Quebec and New Brunswick. So you want Canada to be a superpower and be united and strong? Well, maybe you should unite Canada and make it strong. Okay, this is an American. I haven't read it yet, but I'll see what it says. Love the show. Just my 2 cents. We as Americans have the utmost respect and admiration for our friends to the north. We just need you to elect a strong conservative that puts Canada first and builds your military and gives you back your gun rights. That would make both countries stronger. You know what? It's really true. So that was Ken Ling on Facebook. It's really true. And with Canada being so weak, we're like prime for takeover. There's actually a post that said something that I want to add to this. I'm going to see if I can find it here. Okay. This post. BU per acre, BU/acre, Trump is going to have a hell of a time taking Canada from China. So I know it's kind of a joke, but there's some truth to it. We're primed for takeover. We already have foreign interference happening in our election. We have and very big chance that we're going to have foreign interference with the Liberal election as well. Like a lot of people have been pointing out what I've been telling people about. You don't need to be Canadian citizen or even a permanent well, I think you have to be permanent resident. I should look at the Liberals. I was looking at like the SAS party and the Conservative one because we were having a lot of situation where you can just get a membership and vote in the election even if you're not eligible to vote, like vote in the leadership election or vote in the candidate selecting election, even if you're not eligible to vote in the general election. So you have to be Canadian citizen to vote in the general election. However, you don't have to be that to vote in a nomination or a leadership race. You just need to hold a party membership. Well, the Liberal Party membership is free. You don't have to pay anything to get a membership. So you can have swarms of people from foreign countries who are currently living in Canada. Like it's been said before, there's almost 5 million people whose work permit or whatever permit that they have to be in Canada expires in the next year. And they could all potentially get a membership. Who's going to check that? Who's going to make sure that it is legit? So we do have like a really real risk of foreign interference when it comes to the federal leadership races. So unless the political parties change it that you have to be eligible to vote in our election to be eligible to vote for leadership race or candidate nomination. But I haven't seen any party address that and actually talk about potentially changing that. So Canada is a risk to the US. And whether we want to admit that or not, we are, because we're primed for takeover. It would be really easy for China or any of like or Russia to come through the north into Canada to get to the US. We're not even equipped to deal with that, to stop that problem. And you saw some of that happen. I think it was like last year there was like balloons, whatever balloons or what was it called? Like basically like China was sending weather balloons. I think it was weather balloons or whatever you call it. And we're monitoring Canada, and it was shot down in Canada before it made it to the US. There were some in the US too. But okay, so Jonathan says the truth is our leaders are not for the people. Not saying in the US it's any different, but it's a lot stronger than it is here in China. You know what? Um, I think everyone who gets in, most people who get into government for the right reason, most people do it for the right reason. Once they're inside, I think some people become influenced more than they should by big organization or big money or big, and I don't know how you change that. In the US, it's even more than here when it comes to financial donations to political party that influence a lot of the changes in policy. But I and it's something I've noticed myself, like just getting involved more into politics and in the political realm, even going to events where politicians are, that you see all like the big money people trying to influence politicians or groups with ideology going in there to try to influence politicians, and they want the support, they want the vote, so they consider doing it. I don't know how you fix that. I don't know if it's something that can be changed other than yeah, Jonathan says I totally agree, it's weak character, and it's just human nature. I don't know, other than having more than one different checks and balances to kind of stop like a government from being able to be authoritarian. But yeah, we saw that in Canada. Canadians for as a general rule, or if you how would I say this word? If you generalize Canadians, they've always been very trusting of government. I think it's only in the last I mean, you'd have people who wouldn't trust government, that never trusted government. My husband being one of them. Probably the way he grew up with his father trying to get the wheat board abolished and going in jail over the wheat board for selling a pail of wheat to the US. But so he has a healthy distrust of government. But for majority, Canadians trust their government before. But then COVID happened. And when you saw how authoritarian they could be and how our Charter of Rights and Freedom were basically meaningless, then Canadians, I think, have a huge, like a big portion of Canadians now have a huge distrust in our government, in our structures, in our courts, in basically everything that's available to govern society. I don't know how you fix it. Other than actually one of the best ways I think we could fix it is have national-wide democratic education. So where Canadians are taught and encouraged and to get involved at the democratic level all throughout, whether it's provincial, whether it's school board, whether it's town election, city election, provincial election, federal election, and not just vote at the general election. Democracy, the most important part of democracy that happens is actually not the general election, it's the candidate selection nomination election. So each party have an internal election for which candidate is going to be on the ballot for that party in the general election. Less than 1% of Canadians show up to vote in that election. And I'm going to keep saying this almost every single episode because I want every Canadian to know that there are more elections that happen that you need to get involved in. So in Canada, less than 1%. So most MP that get elected are chosen by about 1,000 people in a constituency of 150,000. Less than 1% of Canadians vote in nomination election. Compare that to the US. The US, about 20 to 30% of the population votes in the primaries, which would be the comparable state to a nomination election in Canada. 20 to 30%, some as high as 40% of the population show up. And I think our education system, our government structures have failed Canadians because they haven't educated Canadians on our democratic processes in Canada. How do I know that? Well, I was one of those people that never knew. I was one of those people that had never voted in a nomination election. You want to know why people who get elected are like usually the friends of the former candidates or the friends of the former people who were in government, and they kind of all know each other or they're family members of that, is because those are usually the only people who know about voting in the nomination election. That's why you see it's like the old boys club. And I don't mean that in a gender sense, but it is an old boys club because they're the only ones who are informed on this. Like, I'm sure most of my listeners here have never heard of a nomination election, don't even know. Most of you don't even have a party membership. You might have gotten one when it was time to pick a leader, but did you get one to get your MP elected, to get your MP chosen? Especially in Saskatchewan, since it's most of the time conservative, voting in the nomination election, you pick who's going to be the next candidate representing Saskatchewan in the next election. Some it's even less. Some it's not even 1,000. Some it's a couple hundred. When you look at the provincial level election, it's sometimes less than 500 people who show up to vote for that. So Jonathan says, channels like this is how we bring awareness, and through awareness, change will happen. It's true. It's true. We can complain all we want that our government is not reflecting us, our government is not listening. Well, no, they're reflecting the few people that know to vote in the nomination election. Literally, and this is why foreign interference is happening in Canada, because the Chinese agents know this, so they show up at the nomination election. And if you can pick a candidate with a couple hundred people, that's really easy to do. And because they don't need to be Canadian citizens to vote in the nomination election, it's prime for foreign interference. You're seeing that happening even at it in some of the by-elections that are happening and some of the candidate elections that are happening right now for CPC, for Liberal Party. That's why you're going to start seeing more of that extremism coming from foreign government infiltrate Canada. So the whole topic of this was because someone said you're going to have good luck taking it from China. How do we fix it? I think if regular everyday Canadians get involved at a local level, at a provincial level, and federal level, and we hold them accountable. We know media won't, but we start holding them accountable ourselves. Join a board. How many of the listeners here are on the board of an elected official? Each federal elected official has a board of like about up to 30, maybe a little bit more, but about 30. How many of you are on a board? You want to have the ear of your elected official, join a board. So, anyways, next topic. This is some of the other stuff that Trump is doing that a lot of the left is freaking out about. I'm indifferent about it. But anyways, thought I'd share this.
I mean, I see this.
You
I
can't
like
hear it.
It's so incredible. Ding, 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 ding. Okay.
All the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. I don't know if he's trolling or if he's actually serious about this. I don't know. Someone on X, I'm so sorry, said China owns 22 million hectares of Canada. That was in 2022. Yeah, that's a huge problem. Huge problem. What's the next subject? What do you think? Do you think Trump is serious about changing it from Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America? I don't know. When you look at the map, it has a lot more of America than it does Mexico. So the other video that I played was announcing, so Trump announced tariffs on Greenland. Yeah, just announced that he will place massive tariffs on Denmark, not Greenland, if they don't immediately relinquish all control of Greenland. We need Greenland for national security. Let the 3D chess commence. So, and then the prime minister or whatever the leader, I don't know if it's president, I don't know what structure Denmark is, probably prime minister, said Denmark is not joining the US. If anything, they might become independent. So, but I don't have that tweet there. So it's not just with Canada. He's like posturing for a whole bunch of different things. They're all in line with Make America, like the superpower that it could be. But again, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if his goal is actually to do that or if he's just playing chess. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, do you think this is just him playing chess, or do you think this is something he actually is gonna push towards doing? Maybe Greenland. I could see that one. Next tweet. I'm gonna share this tweet because Kirk Lubimov, I don't know if you follow him. I've shared his stuff before. I highly recommend you do. He is another one of those brilliant minds, and he made a long post, but I'll read it out because I think it's important that people understand the state that we're in Canada. Our unemployment is growing. So he says, let's recap the situation in Canada. Our unemployment is growing while the number of jobs is shrinking. Economy is slowly collapsing. Public sector job growth outpacing private sector job growth, disguising the true problem. So when they give you the numbers for the jobs, they're not taking out the public sector jobs. So there's a lot of new jobs with government, but not many new jobs with private sector. Next tab, record people using food banks, record people can't afford housing. Justin Trudeau Liberal mass immigrated millions of low-skilled laborers. Now they are just trying to get out of Canada. I'm going to talk about that in the next subject. We have a record amount of asylum claims and people living off taxpayers. Crime is getting out of control. People are dying waiting for health care. Euthanasia became a healthcare tool. We're paying some of the highest price for pretty much everything. We carbon taxing ourselves. While being an energy powerhouse, our energy costs are ridiculous. We have supply chain cartels making our own products more expensive for Canadians. We red tape interprovincial trade for no particular reason. When all taxes accounted for, Canadians are paying 50% plus in taxes with less to show for it. Liberals are wanting to increase taxes further, capital gains tax, at which the CRA already collected. I'm going to talk about that too. There's a post where I'll talk about that later. Record amount of people overdosing from drugs, much of it supplied and lost by the government. Terrorist cheerleaders are freely making and shutting down our streets. We have more and more places in Canada where it's becoming impossible to campaign in English. 30% of our trucking industry is black market. I didn't know that. Our quality of life is rapidly dropping. Our GDP per capita is the same level it was 10 years ago. Canada dropped 8% versus the US dollar last year. Like the Canadian dollar dropped 8% versus the US dollar last year. Half of the assets in our military aren't functional, and we are depleted by the point of personal buying. By the point personnel buying their own gear. We have had the most corrupt government in Canadian history for 10 years. We can't hold anyone in public sector or politician accountable to anything. At least 11 of our members of parliament are working with or for the benefit of foreign government. The Liberals tabled a $61.9 billion deficit in our budget on the last day of House of Commons ran away. There are no plans at all to get back to balanced budgets. We don't have a finance minister. Well, we kind of do, but kind of don't. Our prime minister said he will resign. Our government has prorogued, so we essentially have no governance. A good 30% of Canadians would still vote for all of the above, showing just how many idiots we have. I don't know if it's 30%. Maybe if you add like Liberals plus the NDP. I still don't understand how, after seeing everything that's happened in the last year, how there can be so many people that are still supporting the Liberal government. The Liberals don't want you to question any of the above and keep trying to introduce bills infringing on your freedom of speech. Our biggest partner and closest ally wants to put 25% tariff on us and annex us. But at least we have tampons in the men's washroom. So here we are. I like that little part there at the bottom. Seriously. It's true. It's true. That's the state we are in Canada right now. When Pierre Poilievre went on Jordan Peterson's interview, he says, you're going to have a mess to deal with when you get back in government. And he says the Liberal Party gets the party and we get the cleanup, which is true. I don't know what we're going to do. I do think things will get better under a conservative government, but it probably won't be as conservative as I would like, but I think it will get better. Okay, next subject. Okay, this is the one I was telling you I was going to talk about, the capital gains tax. So Dan Kelly, I've featured him on my show before. He's the president and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses in Business for Your Business. That's his bio. Anyways, he talks about a lot of the things, sorry, a lot of the things that are affecting small, medium, large businesses, just businesses in general in Canada. And one of the things he was addressing, was it yesterday? And I'm going to read this to you because I find it appalling. So CRA has made it clear today that it will continue to collect taxes based on the higher 66.7% capital gains inclusion rate, despite the lack of any legislation from Parliament. So there was an announcement that capital gains tax was going to go up this year, but it never went through Parliament. It was never voted on yet. So it's not actually official yet. And because they've prorogued government, it's not yet happened. Like there is no legalities for CRA to collect this money. However, I'll read the rest. While I understand the original decision of CRA to levy the higher tax rate as of June 25th based on the budget proposal, the circumstances allowing CRA to use this convention has fundamentally changed. Nearly 9 months after the April budget, no legislation was ever presented to Parliament. The Minister of Finance resigned last month, and the Prime Minister has announced his impending resignation. The Parliament has been prorogued. Opposition party have said they no longer have confidence in the government and will push for an election as early as possible, even assuming the current Liberal government or even a new MP finance minister tries to introduce legislation as soon as Parliament reconvenes. It is hard to imagine this passing before an election. As the Conservatives have stated they oppose the increase in capital gains taxation, it seems unlikely a PM Poilievre would introduce such legislation upon taking office. But the CRA says upon resumption of Parliament, if no bill is passed in the House and the government signals its intent not to proceed with the proposed measure, the CRA would cease to administer them. So CRA will collect billions in capital gains tax with no legislation authorizing it until a government officially tells it to stop. This means that it would be a long time before any clarity is provided to taxpayers. This is the definition of taxation is theft. Literally, this is even more because we don't have the legislation authorizing this. Even though I don't believe the Tories would put forward their own legislation to increase capital gains tax, I'm not sure they will be in a rush to tell CRA they won't as one of their early acts, especially as it would mean even larger deficits. The Tories have said they will undertake a tax review, which could take months or years. And I can't see how the current Liberal government or one headed by a new PM or finance minister will find a window to proceed. It's almost done. I expect small business owners and Canadians with capital gains will not have clarity for another year or more. This is deeply unfair and disrespectful to Canadians that have important transactions ahead, not to mention those who rush to sell business or assets in advance of the June 25th, 2024. This political purgatory is untenable. CFIB is looking at the legalities of CRA's position to date and calls on the agency to revert the earlier rules pending a legislative change. CIBC is also calling on Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc to step in and immediately resolve this issue and calling on all opposition leaders to make it clear what they will do should they take office. With all political economic uncertainty in Canada at this moment, government should be working to provide as much clarity as possible, particularly to Canada's job creator. It's so true. Sorry, I know this was super long to read, but it's so important that Canadians understand the state that we're in. When you have companies considering investing in Canada or moving to Canada to come here and create job, capital gains tax is a huge, huge deterrent. It's also a huge deterrent for healthcare professionals like doctors who want to come to Canada. Most doctors, their retirement plan evolves on items that would be taxed with capital gains. So it's actually one of I've heard a few doctors say they're actually leaving because of this. So it's interesting to see. It just shows like a picture of how much we are in trouble. Now, another thing that here Kirk was talking about is immigration. There's another post I want to share with you, which I found really interesting. More than 80% of newcomers to Canada feel the country is bringing in too many people through its immigration system without proper planning. There's a couple tweet on it, so you can go and click on that article from CBC. I don't want to give them a click because I don't like CBC. But a new poll finds that 82% of immigrants who came to Canada in the last 10 years say immigration is too high, which is interesting But no, anyone who complains about it is racist, right? Even the immigrants who are complaining about it, they're racist. Interesting. Okay. Another topic that I'm going to slightly go over is Biden confirms he's considering preemptively pardoning Anthony Fauci. I don't know if you've been following. He's been pardoning a whole bunch of people, not just his son, Hunter Biden, but Anthony Fauci is one. I wonder why he's considering preemptively pardoning Anthony Fauci. Does he know of crimes that Anthony has committed? Is that why he's considering preemptively pardoning him? And the other thing, it was my understanding that you could only pardon someone who had been convicted of a crime. You couldn't pardon someone who hasn't yet been convicted of a crime. But this is one of the things that the US has that I don't agree with, that I think is a huge problem, because it completely circumvents justice. The justice system should be equal for all people, not just people who not be something that someone who's friends with the president can circumvent it. And it's one of the core values of the charter, that everyone is treated equal, that everyone has the equal amount of justice. But that's not happening when you have President Joe Biden pardoning people that aren't even charged yet. Anyways, that means he must know of criminal activity that Fauci has been under. So I have two more things that I want to share. I'm just going to double check here. A few things. There's a video that I wanted to share. It's Joe Rogan, and he had a guy on there, but I don't know who he was interviewing. I will warn you, though, this language that is used, there's a lot of swear words, which I don't usually
Canada. Yeah.
try to promote on my show. But I want to talk about, I want you to hear what he has to say, because it talks about the trucker convoy and what Canada has become in the eyes of an American with a lot of pull. So this was a recent interview, if I'm not mistaken. It was posted January 6th. So I think it's recently. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I will warn you, if you have kids around, there is the F word and the S word being thrown around, even though I don't usually swear. I didn't find a version of it where it was beeped out. So I am going to warn you, if you have kids, maybe put earphones in. But anyways, I'll play it for you, because it was really interesting to get a take of an American, especially one with so much influence in the US.
In the fucking frozen communist shithole of Canada.
Yeah.
It's cold. You get real cold water.
When's the last time you've been up there?
I don't go up there anymore.
You refuse, right?
Yeah, I just fucking, what they've done up there, what they did with the trucker rally, and what Trudeau's doing with guns, and what they're trying to clamp down on censorship on the internet. That guy can eat shit. Like that place needs
how you really feel.
100% an overhaul of government. Like they're sliding down that dangerous road of communism that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's funny, because even though I'm in Canada, it seems like the prevalence of political information and media is so much lesser than what goes on in the States, because it's just far more interesting. But even the alternatives that I'm aware of on the political side of things that are trying to get Trudeau out and replace him, not much better from my understanding.
What they did with the truckers, like, for example, like the way Trudeau just openly labeled them as racist and misogynist. And then when people were donating to this trucker movement, when they were trying to have this protest, they closed down people's bank accounts who donated. I mean, that is third world country shit.
Yeah.
The fact that they think they can do that in Canada is insane.
Have you seen the ban of news in Canada, to where if you're located in Canada, you can't access news outlets now, because the news outlets or the social media platforms featuring the news outlets refuse to pay Canada their own fee, essentially.
It's true.
So if
You're
I'm in
American,
Canada and I
know
go on
this.
Instagram and try to go to a a news page that's outside of Canadian media, it'll literally say can't view, unavailable in Canada. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's nuts. That's like China.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally like what they do in foreign.
Just for like the Americans watching this, yeah. So if you're on Facebook, you can't share a news article. You can't even like copy it and share it. It'll say it can't be shared because it's a news article. I'm live streaming on Facebook. I don't even know if I'll be able to continue live streaming because I am talking about world news and stuff. But so far, I'm still able to. But that might get to a point where I won't be able to on Facebook.
Countries that are run by dictators.
Yeah, dude. The bills, it seems like every couple of weeks there's some new gong show of a bill that everyone says is gonna, wipe out creators off social media or force you to make Canadian content only, which is like this super nebulous thing that you have no idea. Am I only gonna be able to talk about like maple syrup and beavers and shit, or like what's it gonna be? You don't know. So that's a concern as somebody on YouTube, especially. So yeah, but
I've heard concerning things that my podcast at one point in time might not even be available in Canada because of this.
Yeah,
like that's a concern that this could be used in that manner to stop people from accessing podcasts, especially if I'm openly critical of that shithole communist government.
Oh yeah, you definitely won't be on there.
He has strong feelings. The reach. I have strong feelings about this. The Rachel Gilmore. No, it's true. You know what? Like, I don't think we realize sometimes how bad it's been because we've been in it, but then you have somebody who gives you their picture of what Canada has become and how insane. Like, isn't it insane that we can't even share news article on Facebook or Instagram or Meta or any social media? Like, that's insane when you think about it. And it's all because of our government and the policies that they've passed. Like, it's insane. They want everyone signed up to cable TV just so that they can brainwash the people. So you can't share anything outside of the world. I don't know. But it's insane. Then you had all the free speech, the attacks on free speech bills that were supposed to be passed. That, I guess that's one benefit of the government being prorogued, is those bills are not passing. So, but it's interesting. Anyways, I like Joe Rogan. If you didn't know, he used to be on the left and now he's on the right. So I agree with him on a lot of takes, and I like that you even see this in the interviews that he does. Like, he's changed his minds on things once he's been more informed and kind of giving information on other things. I like that he has that open mind too, to change his mind, especially if he's given information that he was wrong about something. But I don't know who that guy is that was getting interviewed. Do you guys know who it was? It says he's on YouTube. Must be Canadian. I've never even heard of him. Or maybe you guys have. Yeah, if you know who this guy getting interviewed, this guy here talking on Joe Rogan, let me know. I might just search it later. Make sure I follow him. What else? I think I've got all the videos. There was one more video that I wanted to show actually, but I hadn't put it up there. So this is a lady, Kemi Badnoch or Badnoch to Keir Starmer, and she's talking about the rape gangs happening in the UK. And I watched this and I'm like, oh wow. She does a phenomenal job addressing this, and I want to share it with you guys. I'm going to see if I can find her and follow her. But I'm going to open it up.
Mr. Speaker.
But it's even interesting to hear the response of the people in the room as well. So here.
Mr. Speaker, we need to focus on what this is really about. This is not about the Prime Minister's work in the CPS. And I would say very respectfully to the Prime Minister, it's not about you. It is about the victims. Be a a leader, not a lawyer. We know that people were scared to tell the truth because they thought they would be called racist. If we want to stop this from ever happening again, we cannot be afraid. The Labour Party has adopted the APPG definition of Islamophobia. That same APPG report said talking about sex groomers was an example of Islamophobia. This is exactly why people are scared to tell the truth. And the lack of clarity means that innocent British Muslims are smeared by association. That is not fair, and only a national inquiry can solve this. So will the Prime Minister look again at the Labour Party's adoption of the definition of Islamophobia, its chilling effect, and rule out introducing it in government?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will call out any aspect that has prevented anybody coming forward or any case going forward when it comes to violence against women and girls, child abuse or child sexual exploitation, as I have been doing now for the best part of 15 years. But, yes, some people will say there should be a further inquiry.
Anyways, I thought she did a really good job. Someone said in the comments, she's the new leader of the Tories in Britain. I didn't know that. I'm gonna look her up some more. Be a leader, not a lawyer. Yeah, the part where the video was, the person said, Kemi Bad. How do you say it? Is it Badenoch? Badenoch? Be a leader, not a lawyer. She's absolutely tearing him apart, and Starmer is visibly shaken and upset. Anyways, again, I want to do a deep dive as to what's been happening in the UK with the rape gangs or the grooming gangs. I don't even want to use that term because it's rape gangs. But I'm just going to see if there was anything else. This episode's going to be a little bit short today. I thought, oh my gosh, I have a lot of stuff to cover. Actually, there's one more thing I want to cover. Another interview with Joe Rogan. Again, this show is called Your Daily Dose of Salt and Light. And I kind of realized I haven't been talking or bringing my faith into the conversation as much as I should. But I really liked this guy, Wesley Huff. He talks about Jordan Peterson and not just Jordan alone, but he talks about basically how Jesus condemned moralism. Basically, it's saying it's not your works are not going to be what gets you to heaven. You can do all the works on its own. Unless you have Jesus, it's not going to happen. But anyways, I just thought he explained it so well. I'm going to share it with you guys. And where this is relevant to, there's been, even in the Christian circles, you have Christians who have authoritarian mindset when it comes to government. I've talked about that. Like I guess you could call it the woke right, the authoritarians of the right, where you think you need to force people into not sinning or force people into following God. But that whole thing goes against the whole, you're going to force them to do something that it's going to take away their opportunity of even coming to Christ. So, or even getting to know Jesus. Like, we shouldn't be forcing it on people. We should be telling people about it, but it's a free will choice as to if they're going to follow God. Do I think we shouldn't deserve laws? Yeah, we do have some laws because we need to protect certain people from those rights being taken away from them. So, and I talk about this all the time. I'm more of a libertarian mindset. I'm okay with people choosing what they want for their lives as long as they're not affecting other people's rights. That's where my line gets crossed. If your right is affecting someone else's right, then I have issues with that, because someone else also has a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. If you were talking about the US, but in all reality, that's kind of what is supposed to be kind of described also in our Charter of Rights in Canada. But anyways, I'm going to share this video because I thought it was really well done. I really like how he articulated it. And I'm going to see if I can get him to come on my show and talk about this, because I felt like, okay, this is like the true message of the gospel. And some people forget that this is, anyways, I'll play it. We can talk about it after. You can share me your thoughts on it too.
Like the way that Jordan Peterson articulates it, but I think he misses the forest for the trees.
How so?
In that he sees Jesus as an archetype.
Mm.
And I don't think actually even Jesus gives you the opportunity to see him as the archetype. Because I have this love-hate relationship with all of Peterson's stuff, because he seems to get so much right where he walks up to the line, but he doesn't want to cross over.
And is the crossover, you think, connected to a life in academia? Or
No.
What do you think it is?
I wonder, and I'd love to talk to him about this, like, how do you remedy this issue that, because he seems to think that the concept of Jesus as an example is more important than the actual flesh and blood first century itinerant Jewish preacher who was crucified and rose from the dead physically, which is the claim of the Gospels and the rest of the New Testament. That's an example for us to look on and live by. But I actually think that Jesus condemns moralism. And ultimately what I see Peterson doing is looking at Jesus as a moral example. And if Jesus is nothing but a moral example, then you can save yourself and you don't actually need a savior. And so I think actually Jesus would have critiqued that, because Jesus was very against moralism.
It's
And
true.
how do you define Jesus being against moralism? Like, what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, Jesus looks at the religiosity of his day with like particular groups like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who are these other groups of Jews during his day. So we talked about the Essenes, actually aren't mentioned in the Bible, but there are other groups like the Pharisees, who are like lay scholars, and the Sadducees, who are professional priest scholars. And he's constantly critiquing the fact that they have this hypocritical religiosity to them, where they're doing things like tithing their mint leaves, like to make sure that they get all of, this is where we get the idea of the letter of the law versus the intention of the law. Like Jesus critiques them for that, because he says, you're trying to do everything right and you're missing the point. So one of the things he says is like, if your donkey falls in a ravine on the Sabbath, do you pull it out, or does that work? Like, what's the point of the Sabbath? Is it to not do any work? Like, is it to make sure that you're not working too hard because you might be breaking the Sabbath? Or like, what is the point? He says, like, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And that there's this intention. This is the whole Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, is he keeps saying, you have heard it said, but I say, and he refers to the Mosaic law. And it looks like he's critiquing the Mosaic law, but he's not actually. He's getting back to the intention of the law. So when he says, you know, you have heard it said, do not commit murder, but I say to you, anybody who harbors a hate for their brother in their heart has already committed murder. And what he's getting to is like, what's the intention? What's the meaning of the law that God gives to you? Because the law is like a mirror. It shows you how dirty you are. But his critique is, he's like, you guys are trying to clean yourself with a mirror. That's stupid. It's just if anything, it's gonna make you more messy. Like, get in the shower. The law is not what cleans you. The law is what reveals that you're dirty. And so in that sense, I think, you know, if Jesus is a moral example, it actually misses what I think Jesus actually said about what his purpose was, in that you can't do enough to actually live up to the standard that God holds you to. And so if you keep striving, you're actually going to wear yourself out and be exhausted.
Like atheists.
I didn't say you did, Joe.
It's true. It's true. And I think a lot of Christians, even Christians that I know, miss this. They miss it completely. The law is not to make us become Christ or go to heaven or have a relationship with Christ. The law is to show us where we will fail over and over and over again. And the only way we don't do that is to draw nearer to God and to have a personal relationship with God, and to recognize that we need Jesus and not the other way around. So it doesn't matter what you do, your works will never be enough. So I just thought that was interesting. Not only that, it kind of explains why even if we were to form government, if the entire Christian world were to form government, if they were to make the law of the land, and I mean like all of it, may the law of the land force people to act like Christian, it still wouldn't bring salvation. If anything, I think it would do the exact opposite. It would push people away from God. And I think we sometimes forget that. And like I said, I have some friends who have that mindset, who have that belief system that they should I have a friend who's against democracy. And I completely disagree with him. We've had some strong discussions on it where I'm trying to make him realize like it's not you're missing the whole purpose of the Bible and the message in the Bible. And you're missing what it means like to be a Christian. And so yeah, we've had those discussions, and I think if we are to spread the good news, which this is the good news. I know it doesn't seem like it because no matter what we do, we don't measure up. But the good news is it doesn't matter because you have a God who loves you and who offers you grace, who offers you a way to be one with him one day, no matter how much you don't measure up, no matter how much you don't deserve it. And that message is lost on so many Christians. That message of grace, of forgiveness, of love is lost. And it also forgets like the best part about being a Christian is having that personal relationship with Jesus. Like that's what makes a Christian be worth it. Like when I think back about my life before I was a believer, some of you may not know my story. I grew up, had very much church hurt. I was sexually abused by someone who was an elder in the church that I went. When it came out, when he was arrested, charged, they didn't really do anything about it. He still kept his position. He still, and they just tried to pretend it never happened. And I just saw like the church as like a cult, as people who pretend to be good that aren't actually good. See the works, they pretend the works that you see are good, but deep inside their heart isn't. And I saw that growing up, and I actually became extremely against the church, and I became an atheist. And not only was I an atheist, I would warn people to stay away from God, warn people to stay away from the church. But it wasn't God who did that. These were broken humans who did that, who continue to do that. We're going to continue failing, whether we're Christian or not. There's nothing we can do to measure up to God. There's nothing we can do to measure up to everyone out there. Christians are going to fail every single day. The only way we get better and less of a failure is as we draw near to Christ and build that relationship where he works in us and filters us and works one sin at a time, one sin problem at a time. It's funny. I see that not Joe Rogan wasn't swearing on this one, but I've seen Christian do a lot of swearing. I watched a video earlier this week. I think it's called The Misfit Patriot, and he was talking about Israel. And anyways, he was swearing in it, and he says he's a Christian. And I saw in the comments say, "Hey, if you're a Christian, maybe you should talk like one." And I right away I'm like, okay, God is working on him and working on many other things that are a lot more important than his swearing. Because I remember when I first became a Christian, I used to swear like a sailor. I was a police officer. And I remember someone telling me, well, you shouldn't be swearing if you're a Christian. Maybe you're not a Christian. You know what? God was working in a million other things that were way more worse than me swearing. Eventually, as kind of we worked through that and got rid of some of that sin, the swearing became to the forefront, and I felt convicted over it. And now I try to never swear. Does it slip out sometimes? Yeah. I sin every single day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't sin, no matter how hard I try. The only time that I find that I'm even close to overcoming that, there are times where I'm spending a lot of time with God. But yeah, when all, I'm trying to remember where I was going with this conversation. But yeah, when I think about like that particular situation, you had a Christian judging another Christian. How about you ask him, "Hey, is there anything I can pray for with you?" Or you ask him, "How's your spending time with God going? Like, are you struggling with anything right now?" Like, that's what we should do as Christian when we see someone sin or stumble as another Christian, is reach out that hand and say, "Hey, is there anything like reach out a loving hand, not a condemning, judging hand." You don't know. He could be struggling with like a porn addiction that he just finally defeated in the months before. And now you're going to start accusing them of not being a Christian. If you knew what he had been struggling with, I'm not saying this guy particularly, but you don't know. You don't know the person's heart. You don't know their walk with God. If you're seeing something like that, instead, offer a hand on helping them get closer to God or build a relationship with God. So yeah, I see this, and I'm a failure at that too. There's many times where I've looked at someone, I'm like, maybe their behavior is not Christian like. And but I do still think we need to call out, especially those who are Christian, who are harming other Christians or who are pushing people away from God as well. So there's a fine balance as a Christian on what to do, especially when you're seeing someone hurt the and spread a false gospel as well. When you're seeing that happen, that doesn't help the body of Christ. That doesn't help the unbelievers. So there's a fine balance that needs to be taken. And again, I'm learning it every single day. There's many times I've failed at this. So, and there's many times I'm going to fail at this. But yeah, so interesting. It's just interesting to see even this guy going on Joe Rogan and sharing the good news with Joe Rogan. I have a feeling that Joe Rogan is going to become a Christian, like a full blown Jesus believing, a fire for God Christian. so I'm still not holding my doubt. And it's funny that he talked about Jordan Peterson. I actually met Jordan Peterson in Saskatoon. He came and spoke here. And I've talked about this before. I was on a mission from God. I was given tickets last minute, front row tickets, and it was VIP tickets. So I got to stay at the end, and you get asked a question, or you get there was like, I don't know, 250 people in the room. And I was one of the people chosen out of two people chosen to ask a question. And, but I knew I was going there on a mission. Like, I really felt like that was what the Lord was asking me for. And he told me I was going to be highlighted. And when I asked, okay, well, when that happens, what do I do? He said, glorify me. And yeah, I was out of the 250 people in the room. I was the second person chosen to ask a question. And I asked the question that Jordan Peterson didn't want to hear. I said, do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Like, you talk about the Bible, you talk about Jesus, but do you know him? And anyway, so he was tormented. Tormented, completely tormented. I read body language in his entire face, like, oh my gosh, I hate you right now. And maybe he does. He hates getting that question because I honestly think it convicts him. I think he wants to. But his mind gets too much in the way of it. He just still doesn't quite understand it. So what it means. He talks about the logos being his faith, and but I think it's more than that. Logos is just one avenue God reaches us. So the Bible is just one of the ways God talks to us. So yeah, anyways, it was interesting to see. I don't know if he still remembers me or anything like that. He does follow me on Twitter, so but yeah, he's another person that I look forward to the day where he fully like steps into that personal relationship with God. And I think he's so close. But anyways, that's going to be it. I will be back tomorrow. So tomorrow is Thursday. So in 2 days, so not tomorrow, but Friday, I have a guest, Bruce Party. I got his name right this time. is coming on, and we're going to talk about the woke right and the differences between the left versus the right, the differences between collectivism versus individualism, and what that looks like in the political sense in Canada, what that looks like maybe in the political sense in the US. So I'm really excited about this interview. I'm just going to bring up his profile here. He's a professor. He was recently on Jordan Peterson's show. He's a professor in Canada. He's the executive director of Rights Probe. I'm pretty sure it's in Canada. He wrote a book too. Later this afternoon, I'm actually going to do a deep dive on him. Globalism versus nationalism. Is that one of the things he's talked about? I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to do a deep dive on him. I'm going to do a full profile so that that sounds bad, but it's not. It's just to make sure that that I know him fully so that I can pose questions that will have the greatest benefit for information for my viewers. So I don't do enough interviews. I think it's just because I haven't had much of the time to work towards organizing that. I don't have a producer. It's me doing everything. I don't have anyone who kind of does like the, what's it called? Like the production or the thing of the show. Even like clipping and I'm having a hard time figuring out words today. Just so you guys know, English is my second language. So if you see me mispronounce certain things or use the different verbs or terms, French is my first language. So I grew up in a French home. We only spoke French at home. I learned English in high school, I think, or maybe grade 6 is when they start. I went to French college, French university. So like full French, not French immersion. So I know that there's not like that much of an accent because I've been out west since 07. So over time, my accent is kind of diminished unless I'm super tired, which might be why I'm having a hard time remembering words. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun interview. So that's happening on Friday. And then we'll see who else I can bring on the show. But I'll be working on that. And then, yeah, James Lindsay's supposed to come on. I just have to reach out to him and see if when he's available. I know he's been controversial lately. This is a big reason why I want to bring him on. I think the discussion on the woke right versus woke left is very much in right now, and I think we could learn from his perspective, even if many people may not agree with it. So, but yeah, okay. Well, I'm gonna let you guys go, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully, closer to 12. I didn't do Instagram Live. I actually decided not to do Instagram Live. It doesn't save it anyway, so there's no point in doing it live. I don't have enough followers, so I'm going to wait till like the follower builds up for Instagram. And I'm going to be posting some videos. I was just working on that today to get like short clips of the episodes so I can start posting that. I'll probably post some today of this episode. And then yeah, and hopefully there'll be like content posted every like 3-4 times a day. So I just need to figure out a system, and that's what I'm working on right now. But I will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully around 12. See you guys.